Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to ASCILITE webinar series. And today we are very pleased to have our colleagues talking to us about TELAS. And it will be facilitated by Chris Campbell, our previous ASCILITE president, who is still supporting us, the TELAS portfolio. So over to you, Chris.
Thanks so much, and hi everyone and welcome. I would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the ancestral lands on which we are meeting on today, and that's the various lands in which we're all on. And I acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country, and also pay my respects to other Aboriginals and elders present and here attending from other areas of Australia. We acknowledge the many cultures that live in this land today, and we should collectively respect the land, its past and present stories for our future generations to enjoy. And a warm welcome to our Charles Darwin folk, Michael, Sankey, Bill, Wade and Zachary Watt, as well as the Sydney University people, Carlos and Benedicte. I would like to say thank you so much for coming to present today. So many of you know that we've had the ASCILITE TELAS Framework around for quite a few years now. We've been implementing it since 2019, and it's been in production with training sessions and peer reviews being conducted for the last few years now. So Michael and crowd have actually taken the TELAS framework and mapped to the LMS and their TEL ecosystem, so in a really, really nice way. And we thought it would be great if Michael, Bill and Wade could talk about that. But then what's happened is using through sharing of that knowledge, so thank you very much, Charles Darwin, Sydney University have taken this on, particularly in the business school with Elaine Hoover, who couldn't join us today, and Carlos and Bernadette will talk about that. And then we'll have some questions that you might want to have, and we'll finish with some questions that I'll facilitate. So thank you, Michael, Bill and Zach. I'll mute and hand over to you now.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much. And we've cheekily called this TELAS Matters as opposed to Quality Matters. And Zach, if you want to go to the next slide, please. Quality Matters, for those who don't know, is a similar tool to TELAS, but we think it's actually a better tool. TELAS is a better tool than the Quality Matters. So a little bit of context. At CDU, we've used Quality Matters in the past. We felt as though that we wanted to move away from that, and once TELAS came out, we found that is a much better tool for us to look at. And so, similar to QM or Quality Matters, it looks at research, community, rubrics, peer review, things like that. It's exactly what we're doing in TELAS, and yet it's an Australian version. Next one, please, Zach. So what we're going to look at is, talk through a little bit of the history here at CDU. We first took the notion of TELAS to our Technology Enhanced Learning Advisory Group, TELAG. And the TELAG group agreed, okay, this looks like it could be useful for CDU. We'd had, as I said, the Quality Matters. We've had other ways in which we're thinking about quality for our units and courses. But then we found within the TELAS model, this was a much more complete model for us to use. So we then took that to Learning and Teaching Committee. And they agreed that, yep, we'll give this a run. It's not something we do overnight, but it is something we'll work towards. We then said, okay, well, we need to get some trained staff in the use of the TELAS. So we had a bespoke workshop with 20 of our staff, and Chris and Elaine ran that workshop for us. We're probably talking now 2 years ago. And then we went on and have had registered 13 people to go on and do the full accreditation. And we funded that centrally. We funded 13 people to go on and do that. We've had 8 of those 13 finish that, and now are registered supervisors or registered peer reviewers within the TELAS. I think we still have the most in the country. We don't know yet. We'll have to get some updated figures from Elaine at some point. But more importantly, we thought we needed to see this become part of our SOTL, our Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. So what we've done is we've started to see some papers emerge where we're talking for the sector in relation to the use of this. So this is one of them. This was one produced by Zebulon Pingo, Heather Volk, and Seb Dianati, who are staff here at the university, and they've talked about their use. There's another one that Zebulon did and I did with him and another guy called Suman, and that was just recently came through in JOLTIP, where we talked about this as part of the framework of which we work. And then the next one is a paper that myself and Stephen Marshall wrote for an edited book that we put together. I put together with Henk and Rachel from UQ, where we also talk about the relationship of standards to benchmarks and things like that. So we're giving this a pretty good run and wanting to see this become a whole field of its own in terms of the research and the scholarship around the use of this tool. I think I'm going to hand over to Bill now to start talking through the context of us at TELAS and how we're putting that into practice now.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So the context at the time we were thinking about this is there was a whole bunch of stuff post-pandemic coming out, and there were a lot of indicators that there was a real focus on being able to assure the quality of online learning. And this was represented in EDUCAUSE's Horizon reports, both 21 and 22. In fact, one of our own professors, I think John Mason, wrote specifically about one of the largest challenges will be about how we can assure quality in our online learning spaces. We see the same kind of things popping up in the TEXA and ASCILITE standards, and they're wanting to make sure that we have mechanisms to assure the quality of online learning. And then finally, QT's final report on modes of delivery also, and if you go to the next slide there, Zach, this final report highlighted a whole bunch of issues for higher education, but if you read a little bit deeper, what continues to resonate was this issue of how do we know what quality looks like in an online learning environment?
Yeah.
And previously it was like a needle in a haystack in some ways. Everybody had their own opinion about it. But we're so happy that we have the accreditation standards to work from. So as you know, there are 8 of them, and they circulate around positive learning, supportive learning, information support, all the way through to resources that are relevant. And then they have performance criteria against each of the standards. And we took those on board and found ways to map each of our tools against each one of these. So we ran a project. It was agile. It consisted of 4 members, learning designers, working fortnightly in sprints, taking the framework, mapping it against each of our ecosystem tools. We wanted our staff to be able to say, okay, if I want to do a next level uplift of my online learning, where would I focus and what tools within our ecosystem can help us get there? So we literally mapped the technology enhanced learning ecosystem to the framework, and it's worked out quite well for us. We've templates and quality assurance checklists that all make use of that. Zach, do you want to take over from here?
Yeah.
You actually were on that team, weren't you? One of the 4, the big 4.
The big 4. Thank you, Bill and Michael. Much appreciated. Look, I'm sure most of you guys are aware of TELAS, so look, I'm not going to go over that. For this project, we use the technology ecosystem at the university to map the criteria in TELAS. It was during this process that we realized that while some of the performance criteria were more about technical requirements, most were centered around best practice advice. On this slide, you can see an example of our mapping TELAS to the CDU technology ecosystem graphic, or matrix as I usually call it. I'll flick to the next slide so we can see it a little larger and explore it in more detail. So vertically on the left, you can see the relevant TELAS standard and performance criteria listed. And horizontally, we have listed the tech that makes up the CDU technology ecosystem, which is quite an impressive ecosystem in my opinion, and it's growing. The green sections mean that it's doable with that tool. And we also list the components of the tool that support the standard. Yellow means that it needs to be reviewed and confirmed, perhaps with a learning designer, but the standard is likely to be supported by the tool. And the gray means that it's not applicable, most likely because it's not CDU's recommended tool for the given purpose, or perhaps it just doesn't fit that purpose. For instance, specifically, performance criteria 1.4, learners have opportunities to provide feedback, as you can see here on the screen, is supported by a range of technologies in our ecosystem. Looking at Blackboard, or LearnLine, as we call it here at CDU, the learner can provide feedback through discussion forums, messaging, surveys, and class conversations, which are all native tools that we have in Blackboard. But we certainly do have other dynamic options, such as VoiceThread, Padlet, feedback fruits, and so on. For us, the TELAS framework is a best practice advice that we use as a benchmark when we're developing units and working with our teaching staff. The TELAS framework doesn't necessarily have to be explicitly covered with the teaching staff, although we are more and more doing that. Instead, our work addressing the TELAS standards in the design of our ultra templates becomes a powerful conduit for the implementation of the TELAS standards. This is on the screen here, you can see an example of our template site. This is the Digital Learning Design team's template site. This was initially created for us to share and house our learning design templates that we've developed and used during our work designing units for both higher ed and vet units with our teaching staff. Sharing our templates was very much about building consistency across the work of our team, but it has evolved with the introduction of TELAS as a guiding framework. The Ultra templates cover a range of delivery methods and contain instructional content and examples for teaching staff to draw upon as they work with us to develop content for their units. We've also added rationale for why the element of the Ultra template is critical, including citations. After we undertook the TELAS training, we reviewed our templates together as a team, mapped them against the TELAS standards, reworked them as needed, and then added this mapping information to the templates in the locations where the standards were being addressed. You can see an example of this on the current slide. To the right-hand side there, you'll note that the rationale and mapping is kind of hidden in a H5P accordion. We did this initially because we felt that it would help reduce the cognitive load of the page and allow the teaching staff to focus on developing their content.
Look at him go, all these terms he's using. It's great.
Why, thank you, Professor Sankey. Look, in my work as a digital learning designer, so I'm the digital learning designer for CDU TAFE here, and I work in the digital learning design team. I've created many bespoke templates for a broad range of delivery modes. In addition to our DLD Team Ultra template site, I'm actually working on a project at the moment for a TAFE-specific template that will be developed and used across CDU TAFE and will include options to support the delivery of single units, clustered units, and full qualifications on LearnLine. So we actually have single LearnLine sites that have full qualifications built into them now, and they are going great guns. The graphic that you can see on the screen shows an example of our Start Here section for a TAFE single unit LearnLine site. You can see we've got a welcome and a unit overview section. And to the right of that, you can see I've included the rationale for why we should provide the welcome and the unit overview and how that page maps to the TELAS framework. So on the LMS, it is kind of a bit of a long page. Initially, I had included the TELAS mapping in a H5P accordion like you saw previously, but based on feedback from a few lecturers that I've done a bit of testing with, they felt it was a bit too hidden and perhaps just easy to dismiss, just not look at. So I am trialing adding the TELAS mapping as a section below the welcome that can be deleted once the page is developed. On this screen, you can see an example of the chat section of our TAFE template where we have lecturer view only items that are hidden from the students. These items cover the range of communication and collaboration tools available in LearnLine, examples of how they can be used, support and training options, and how the tools map to the TELAS framework, along with a link to the TELAS website. You can see that on the right of the screen there. You can't actually, one thing you can't see here is there is also a link to the TELAS mapping matrix document on this page. So if they want to explore it further, they can. Getting buy-in from our TAFE teams around using the TELAS framework has been a challenge. Vocational education and training, VET, is inherently practical, with the majority of our units still being delivered face-to-face, blended, but primarily face-to-face. However, we are witnessing a significant increase in the delivery of theoretical and preparative content for practical sessions online within our TAFE team. So people are trying to build some, I guess, some prior knowledge for the students before they come in and swing a chainsaw, perhaps. This shift has made the TELAS framework increasingly valuable in ensuring a high-quality online learning experience for our TAFE students. As I was recently discussing with a lecturer from our TAFE beauty team, creating student engagement online does present a bit of a unique challenge in VET courses. For instance, our Certificate 3 in Beauty Services qualification comprises 18 units that are delivered over 6 months, with some of those units requiring up to 38 hours of practical work. The intensive nature of these courses, combined with the high practical component, makes it difficult to design online interactions that match the hands-on learning experiences that students are undertaking on campus and in the workplace. But despite these challenges, we are committed to leveraging TELAS to enhance online student engagement and support effective learning outcomes. And after reviewing the mapping TELAS standards to the tech matrix, which I showed you earlier with the lecturer, she decided she would trial a qualification-wide Padlet that she and the students can use to get to know each other prior to attending practicals, share ideas and experiences as they progress through the units, and collaborate and provide feedback to each other. So I will move on from the templates, and I'll cover briefly, I'll try and be a little bit quicker, the efforts we've made to activate TELAS at CDU around our LearnLine unit readiness checks, which we have now also mapped to TELAS. So CDU's LearnLine unit production process for higher ed and TAFE facilitates the availability of LearnLine sites to lecturers for preparation and development, quality enhancement measures, and finally the release of those units to students. Our teaching period coordinators in higher ed and our site coordinators in TAFE play a vital role in this process by preparing the units in time for teaching and completing a unit readiness review of the unit to ensure the unit is ready for students. The LearnLine unit readiness checks are a critical part of the unit production process and do contribute greatly to CDU's quality enhancement of our learning and teaching by providing minimum criteria for units in LearnLine. All the LearnLine units are assessed against a set of mandatory and optional criteria as part of this process. As seen in the graphics on the screen, you can see over here the welcome message is aligned to TELAS Standard 4 and so on. And they are advised of the reasoning behind why we do these checks and are informed of the alignment of the unit check criteria with TELAS where possible. And there's also a link to the TELAS website included for further information. So as you can see on the screen, we've got the welcome message there. That aligns with TELAS Standard 4. The form of this welcome message that it's delivered in, the form that it's delivered in can vary a great deal depending on the technology that we use. It could be a video welcome message using Kaltura, a simple text announcement, or perhaps an interactive and engaging welcome message using Padlet or VoiceThread. And this is where the mapping TELAS standards to CDU technology ecosystem matrix that we showed you earlier comes into play. It allows us to easily define the tools that we can use for this purpose and explore them with our lecturers. On this screen, you can see a few examples from our higher ed LearnLine unit readiness check criteria. In our HE LearnLine unit readiness check, we have a criteria for set text, which maps to TELAS Standard 7, that learning resources are available, functional, inclusive, and are compliant with copyright and attribution requirements. All set texts are available to our students via the CDU library maintained integrated reading list, which we use Leganto. And this is checked by our librarians to ensure we are compliant with copyright and attribution requirements before the unit is released to students. So I think that's probably me, and I'll hand things back over to Bill now so we can discuss some of the benefits of this project and move beyond. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Zach. That's great, because what I think you've painted a picture of just how it's embedded in our workflow. And that was one of our major strategic approaches to making sure we could leverage the standards through. And this particular project worked really well because it was led by our designers. It had structured ways with maps to our workflows. And it really helps us assure that we have evidence quality assurance in our design work. We also got really great student feedback from units where we actually implemented this. Do you want to just move on, Zach? And I'll just talk. This is some of the kind of feedback that we got from students based on Qualtrics surveys, anonymized Qualtrics surveys for units that use the TELAS standards to make incremental improvements in areas that they needed to improve within their courses. And so it's really beneficial for us using an ADDIE cycle in our design process, to really see what kind of evaluation we get after we implement some of these ideas. And it's been really positive at CDU. Next, thanks, Zach. An added little piece here, you've talked about the workflow, Zach, but the tougher challenge, and I'm sure Michael will point on to this, is really bringing people along through the process and introducing it and making it a very tacit and useful process. So what we do is our designers will sit down with lecturers and say, oh, you want to improve your online learning and evidence that you did something in a scholarly way. Maybe you're going up for academic promotion and you want to, have some evidence of efforts you made. Sit down with the designer, use the standards to reflect upon your unit. And if you just go to the next slide, Zach, we'll just zoom in here. come up with some comments and some feedback around that. Here, this lecturer decided that they wanted to increase communication between the learner and the teacher, make it more explicit, and also had some questions. Can we actually make participation in the online environment a requirement? So they were able to incrementally improve their unit through this reflective practice. I think that's one of the best benefits that we have as a design team, a tool at our disposal that we can sit around with our educators and make improvements. Thanks.
I think Bill just touched on it before. It's the evidence. So when we look at academics wanting promotion, they're always looking for evidence as to what they can say about how they improved their course. This is instant evidence for them. They've done this, they can put that in, that they've run their units courses past the TELAS framework, and that's great evidence in their promotion applications.
Yeah. And does it really matter to the students? Well, it does. We asked them, and the students responded. This student responded quite eloquently. Look at the last sentence there. Hey, in short, investing in excellent learning design and quality learning teaches an investment in myself and my future, ... Now, this was a ChatGPT student, but we tend to believe that quality in online learning does matter. Thanks, Zach. So I mentioned we use the ADDIE cycle to really evaluate and analyze how we're using the TELAS framework as well too. You'd all be familiar with that model.
Okay.
Over to you, Michael.
So the challenge, of course, for any university implementing something like this is how quickly can we have uptake? Well, it takes a while. We've been banging away in this for a couple of years now. Do we have every staff member on board yet? Not yet, but we are well on the track. Really, it's a three-pronged approach. It's about a three-pronged approach. It's about making the decision. It's about then upskilling the staff, not just your design staff, but also your academic staff in relation to how it applies to their particular units. And most academic staff, once they get into it, see that there's a benefit for them in using this thing. And then, of course, it's a matter of workload. Now, we, in our particular case, have workload associated with the redesign of units. That may not necessarily be the case in all universities, but it usually is. And so we just need to work through and show them the benefit of doing this, because they start to get better student evaluations and things like that. So it's, in a sense, where it's this carrot and the stick. And in many cases we see, and we've seen in those publications we now start to see coming out, that people are starting to understand the benefits to them and how it can affect their particular units of study. Thanks, Zach. It's going to take 3 or 4 more years till we get this fully implemented, but we're determined to do so. Okay, I think that's us, isn't it, Zach?
That's us. I'll stop sharing screen and let Carlos and Benedicte.
So just to make a comment on that, Michael, you and the team have gone perfectly to timing. So thank you very much and very well done. So Carlos, what was that, Michael?
By good luck and by good management.
I would never have said that, actually. Carlos and Benedicte, would you like to now begin screen sharing? And again, I'll go on to mute.
Sure. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much to CDU for explaining this more in detail. We're pretty new at starting to put TELAS into our work. We have for everyone to understand a little bit about us. We work for the University of Sydney on the business school. Our group project is called Business Co-Design and Connected Learning at Scale. What we do in this project is we help a lot of business school units to improve and get more in contact with new technologies on their sites. There is a lot of learning design work doing into that space. I work as a senior learning technologist for all these units. My colleague Ben works as a digital learning designer. So today I would like to present our first approach into using the TELAS framework with the work of the CDU that we use as an example to start mapping our tools. All right, so first, the work that BCD and class work is mostly in the agile approach of using tools. We know that in this big university that we happen that implementing something new is really hard and it takes a lot of time. So when I say agile, I don't see in the development software approach of things happening in 1 week. It's in the way of we try to test the tool, get the feedback, implement these things, and inform all the other central units from ICT to educational innovation on what we are having to do. We have a very special place in the university that allowed us to pilot tools without going through all the full approval, and that gave us a lot of these things fits into our work and this doesn't fit. That's why we have a lot of tools that started to accumulate, and we try to map everything as possible. So after 4 years that we work with this approach on delivering as many tools as useful for the teachers, and then get with the best for them. We have 3 main different kind of tools in our toolkit. One, which are the pilot. The pilot can be for 1 semester, less than 500 students, to see if the tool is something that really fits into their purpose. Of course, we have always the legal team behind us and the ICT of do not break anything. There's a lot of rig on this one. So we go through a specific rig assessment before implementing with the teacher. So even with the tool is available, it is limited to a specific units before it's launched to everyone. We have the university-wide license and ones that are approved by the university, but they are not paid by them. It's paid by BCD and class. So something that we are very proud of BCD and class is that we have more than 25 unique tools that the teachers can use. That's one of the business schools is the one that has more tools that they can get access to. So we started with that problem of we have too many things to map, and that's where the map created by Zach and the CDU can be really useful for me. Is that we have so many tools for different purposes: assessment, engagement, feedback, media, communication. So many things happening that the teacher, when it comes to all, they don't have an idea of, I need this, but I don't know what tool I want to use. How do I start doing that? So the map also works as a checklist of, I have this for assessment, but I don't have the support of the ICT unit. So before engaging with the full technology, they have to answer all these questions. So we started using the map as a way of, oh, this is ready to start using our license in our tool. So we use the map from CDU to start mapping our tools and create a little bit of changes that fit to us. So let me share. I know that this is very small because it started getting bigger and bigger, that it's really hard to see. So I will share better what is the full version in here. So just give me 1 minute, share. Okay. All right, can you see it? So the map here, so as you can see in our toolkit, we just started accumulating many options in here that are starting to get the map really hard to understand. So that's why I understand the limitations of creating the matrix a little bit, and we're working in the second version, interactive, because as you can see, we have tools that do similar things. For example, Mentimeter, Opinion Stage, they're polling tools with a little bit of twist, but they are in the stage of being approved by the university. So we went one by one using the map to understand where the things are missing. For example, Atomic YOL is one of the main partners we have with BCD and class. And that includes other 4 tools that are kind of similar, but they fit a different purpose. So this first version of the map allowed us to check what we have in there, but also to have a better perspective of how the teacher can use this. If it is too complicated to understand, for example, how H5P is using some units this way and in another fits a different purpose. So you see that we also working with so many tools that work as an LTI integration. So this also helps a lot of an educational innovation program on keeping the standards afloat on data. It will be tracked as we want it. We have to fit that the tool follows the procedure to keep the data from students very safe, that the license is also something available for teachers next semester or for at least 2 to 3 years. And we realized through using the map that we are not using a lot of third-party apps that may be useful, but maybe we want to keep the LTI. That's why the map was a really good first approach. So this is something that we are trying to make bigger, but at the same time, we want to make this approachable for teachers and everyone interacting with this sort of map. Now, this is a little context of how we're mapping and how much offer we have for the tools. Now, there's a lot of other processes where we approach teachers on how to use the tool and what can be useful here. So my colleague Ben will give you a little bit of context on things that we do to make the teacher aware that the tools are ready for launching their units.
Thank you, Carlos. Yes, so what did the learning designers in the business co-design team do to help these academics to choose those digital tools, and mainly to enhance the quality of the digital environment of their unit of study sites? So I wanted to share the process we put in place to support those academics to develop digital activities in their Canvas unit of study sites. The business co-design team developed a Canvas site for academics to explore examples of digital activities that have been developed with different e-tools during the last 4 years. And these activity examples, so there was one example per page, they have been organized in 4 pedagogical outcome streams. So we've got information engagement, formative feedback, active learning, and collaboration. And for each list of these type of digital activity examples, we divided them in 3 sections. I was trying to indicate the level of complexity involved to create and develop the activities with those e-tools. So there was 1 page for each example, and all examples include a paragraph indicating what the activity aims to achieve for students and a short explanation of how to use the e-tool to duplicate that type of activity in your own digital delivery site. Then a few examples and screenshots of how it worked in some of their colleagues' Canvas sites. So academics, they can explore what those educational software can achieve, get an explanation of how to use that e-tool, and browse some example of the students' engagement with the digital activity. And then, can you get the next slide, please, Carlos? And then the main problem also was, how do we get those activities sustainable? How can we make the academics do the maintenance each semester with those activities? So now, when the digital activities have been developed in the Canvas unit of study site, there is a need to maintain or to make sure the activities are sustainable from one semester to the next one. So the learning designer created an asset register for each unit of study site, which is mapping all the Canvas pages to the tools that was used to create an iframe in the unit of study pages. And it's like a table of content of all the digital activities that are in the site. And what we did have, and then there is on that page also, we've put an accordion with all the tools and really all the details of how to access the tool, your credentials, what to do each semester to maintain it. And this is how we got to get the academics to be able to maintain as much as possible or get in touch with us to get support if needed. This is what we did.
Thanks, Ben. Just a final remark after I see what's in the same challenge that the CDU is mentioning. For us, some of the challenges is that the more tools you have, the more teachers have to maintain. And for example, here, and this is one of the units, we have to keep the total of objects that we use in those pages. For example, you see in this unit, we use a lot of HIP. We have 36 objects in there. So we find out that teachers, of course, come with a specific request of, I need a single choice, multiple choice question that it is not an assessment, but it's something for engagement. So after 1 year, that's fine. But the moment something changed in the unit, there is not the same subject coordinator. This kind of documentation that comes from mapping what tool for what purpose in what moment was used, it's our way to escalate things for the following years. Of course, if we map these things, if something breaks down, we can go back and check where is the issue and how we can solve it. This is pretty new. It's a lot of things that we're trying to innovate in this case is also management, and the TELAS framework may be useful for us to how to maintain things and at the same time offer the service at scale, which is the business school is one of those big things. Thank you, everyone. This is our presentation.
Thanks so much, Carlos and Benedicte. That was fabulous and really nice. I guess it shows how you've developed it specific to your context and through using CDU's initial mapping. So now we have time for questions, and I can see there's a couple of more general questions around TELAS, so I'm happy to answer those questions around TELAS. But does anyone else have any other questions around the mapping and what's been done by Charles Darwin Uni and by Sydney Uni's Business School? Or comments that you might want to have? I know that someone asked about getting a copy, Michael.
Yeah, no, we can happy to provide that. No worries at all. It's not.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Irene, if you could drop us an email, michael.sankey@cdu.edu.au, michael.sankey. We'll forward you a copy of the template.
Yes, thanks, Micah. Very much appreciated. Yeah.
No worries.
Perfect, great. And does anyone else have any questions or comments? So, Michael, seeing what Sydney Business School have done with your initial mapping, did you have any questions or comments around that for or of them?
Well, that's interesting because they've got a slightly different tool set to ourselves. So they seem to have more green than we have. So I'm curious to know, and I don't think we could tease it out in this particular session, what parameters they put around what made it green, as opposed to when we might have said it was yellow, for example. So, but I don't think we can really tease it out in this particular session, but I'd be curious to have that discussion with Elaine at some point around that. Maybe as we move forward, there's some guidelines that are developed to what does make something green, what makes it magenta, amber, as it were. And maybe that's something we can look at in the future to promote with the use of the tool itself. To provide, what I'm saying is that we almost, in a sense, give a blank template up on the TELAS site, which helps people do that, but with some guidelines around its use.
Yeah, I really like it. And I think Carlos explaining that they aren't constrained like some universities are around the tools that they're using because they're able to trial them. Obviously, they then got put on their list, and some of them are perhaps more bespoke or fit for purpose for some of the reasons, which allows them to give that green. And I'm just guessing, but yeah, it could be. Whereas other universities I know are really quite constrained around their digital technologies and what they're using across the university. So Anthony has a question.
Jump in on that.
Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't find my hand up in this version of Zoom. So
I couldn't see you. Sorry. Yes, Lisa, would you like
It's
to come in and
Well,
make
it's a
a
little
comment?
bit to do with the tools as well. You're talking about them being green, because it made me think, oh, is this a way to actually weed out tools? To go, oh, because there was a lot of green. I'm like, do you need 25 tools? Would this be a way of going, oh, actually, this one does everything, and we don't need this one because it only does some. We don't need this one because it only does some of the others. I know that's not the intention of TELAS, but it
Well-
made me think, Carlos, looking at your big green document. That,
Yeah, it's interesting
Yeah.
because as each of these tools develop, so we start to see, for example, we use Blackboard Ultra. It's now brought out a peer review tool, and so we've been using feedback fruits to do that. You can do that in PebblePad. You can do it in Turnitin. So there are these new features, and all these tools are continually developing and creating new features. Now that doesn't mean you can necessarily turn off your LMS, because these other tools have other functions as well. So Turnitin has the peer review functionality, but we don't use it for that. We use it for originality checking. But so happens if you use the Feedback Studio, you've got all these other tools as well. So, and some people use them, some people don't. And I've noticed this quite a bit because I've been doing a bit of talking around e-portfolios as well. Some of the tools are now producing more holistic e-portfolios in their suites as well. So it's just an emerging thing we're seeing. And at some point, yes, I think the answer is yes. At some point, you will be able to turn some things off but it's the university then deciding which of these tools is the most appropriate to use, and are we willing to piss off half the academics that are using the other tool?
Even just on that, like my university uses Turnitin, and I tried to use peer markers grouping tool, and I had support and completely failed and couldn't do it, and I ended up doing what I was trying to do manually. So sometimes while we think we have it, we don't always quite have it. And apparently it was to do with either the issues my uni was having or around Moodle. I'm not sure which one. We do have a question that was around, probably a little bit more around TELAS. So Anthony, TELAS is to look at the online component of a course. So it could be blended, it could be face-to-face, but it's in part, it's that online component. So that's what TELAS was actually designed for. So I'm not sure how that affects the second part of your question.
I think there is this thought of how we might use it for sustainability as well. We, like many other universities, have a bit of a turnover in staff, maybe a few more are turned over up here in the Northern Territory than maybe some other institutions. But, we've got units that have been designed by somebody else. A new lecturer comes in and wants to change things. How does that break the map in the future? And so and that's where our learning designers come in who have worked this through with the previous lecturer. At least we've got something to say, okay, this is the reason why we've done it. So where previously we might have just, those things might have just been put in the course and just accepted as read. Now we have some proof. We've got the mapping, we've got the documentation to suggest this is why this has been done in this way. So it helps in terms of sustainability. Is it that simple? No, it's not that simple. Of course, it's not. I'm oversimplifying it. But if we are looking for evidence, that's one of the places we can look if we want to justify why a course has been set up in a particular way. When I say course, we call them units, but I'm saying course because most people call them courses.
Madeline, you have thank you for answering that and expanding on that, Michael. Madeline, you have a question for Carlos to speak a little bit more about maintenance advice and support for academic, and if you have an established life cycle. Would you like to come in and talk about that? Either Carlos or
Benedicte? Sure. Yeah, I was about to reply in there, but it's better if I speak again. So one of the philosophies behind our group work is the co-design part. The co-design aspect in our units means that we start the relationship with the unit in advance, before the semester starts. So these conversations about what tools, how it's going to be used, starts one semester ahead. That's why the cycle of putting a new tool in action was always one semester behind, because it takes a lot of time to approve the tool before getting in contact. So that's why we come up with a more agile process of the pilot thing. The pilot allows the tool to be used in one semester ahead. And also we prepare a lot of, we have tutorials, workshops, and the LD team prepared some material for the teacher to check if they want to. We have a lot of information in our Campbell sites and for our teachers to go and check, self-enroll in Canvas. We have one special like communication with educational innovation. That means that most of our requests, if something breaks down, can be tackled in most of the time less than 48 hours, which is in difference to other groups that sometimes it takes them longer. It depends on the priority. But we try to put a lot of effort in the pilot to make sure that the tool works in different aspects, not only in the technical things. Another thing that we make sure that it passes the test is user experience. We come out with a different background between design and the technical part. And we put a lot of emphasis in tools that are easy to use and understand than the one that has a lot of features to offer. Because after 4 years, and Ben can be aware of that also, is that we spend less time doing support and fixing things and spend more time in helping them with the assessment and the things to implement. And that saves a lot of money, time, and effort on behalf of our LD team.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. Did you have anything further to add there, Madeline? And yes, I agree, Michael. It's a really good approach, right?
No, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Madeline. Are there any further questions? We've got probably time for one or maybe two more.
Kia ora, Leah from Otago, New Zealand. I was just wondering, Carlos, just a little bit further than that, you mentioned about academics being responsible for doing the maintenance on their papers. And I know that you're talking about pilots, but once that gets going and you've got that up and running, at what stage do you ask them to do the maintenance on their courses or their papers to decide what they might use for their tech for the following semester, I'm assuming? Like, how far out do you plan for that? Because if you're talking about licenses and getting things going, just wondering how much prep you put into the planning of it.
All right, I'll answer this question on my behalf, and then Ben can give us another perspective. On my behalf is about the technical aspect of the tool. So of course, we don't just push the teacher into, now it's your responsibility and make sure that you understand. We try to keep this as one semester at a time, which is understand and attend the training a little bit. And we see that if you require a lot of help in understanding this, we also minimize the risk by not using the tool that much in the unit. For example, if the teacher is having problems understanding poles in Mentimeter, and the first semester, we try to keep it to the minimum, maybe 2 poles, and see how it goes, and if it is not a lot of problem for the teacher to manage that load. If it is, for example, we have units that are not that dependent on the technology, teachers that they just want to use one tool, but they are being pushed into, now you have to use this tool because that's the way to go. We try to not load as many tools as in there, just keep it to 1 or 2. And that turns out into a good relationship with not being scared of taking maintenance of your own. We, of course, offer a lot of the documents and videos on the workshops and tutorials on next semester, you will have to renew the question, for example. This is how you do it. And if there's something wrong or you need help, we open that service directly to us on the questions for at least 1 semester before releasing. That's something that the learning design team does, is the handout of the unit. And there's some instructions that, Ben, if you can help me with that, how does that process works in action?
Yeah, so, often you've got different unique coordinators from semesters to semester. This is why you have that page, that maintenance page, where for each tool, you've got screencast, it shows you what to do each semester. And if this is not enough, there is a link there. There is a support. You send us a little form. I'm lost. I need help. And there is a consultation one-to-one. And we take the time to go back to them, to show them, to make them understanding how it works. And usually it does work. And we do sometimes at the start of a semester, have another consultation and just go over the whole thing and making sure that they understand more and more after semester how to use the tool correctly.
So I'll just add a little bit of extra flavour from CDU's perspective. So we use the tool, so we use the map as a way to mediate for staff what tools are available to them. So, you know, a new staff member will come along, they've worked at another university. Oh, we use Mentimeter at our university. I want Mentimeter in my course. Well, why do you want Mentimeter in the course? We've got all these tools that do exactly the same thing. So it helps the proliferation of tools. So if we can say that we've got the tools to do exactly the same thing as Mentimeter does, then that kind of solves that issue. So it's a way of corralling and making sure our academic staff have got the tools they need. If there's something we don't have, well, sure, let's look at that. In terms of the rollover and how much time, usually we give our units rolled over at least a semester beforehand, so they have quite a time to deal with that if they want to. At least 12 weeks of time to work in those units and to maintenance them. But the reality is some staff only get appointed the week before, so you know there's always that problem as well. But regardless, we have a ecosystem of tools. We have a process by which if somebody wants to introduce a new tool to the ecosystem, there's quite a process they need to go through our technology enhanced learning advisory group and things like that. But in many cases, that's circumvented by the fact that we have this all mapped for them, so they can see the functionalities that exist within our systems.
Kia ora, thank you.
Apparently I was on mute. Are there any, I did say fantastic and thank you to Michael, by the way. Are there any further questions from anyone? And if not, before we bring on the final slide, which Lisa has, did you have anything final to add, Michael, Bill or Zach, around your presentation or around the topic?
I'll just say that, look, we're open to questions from anybody in the future. So if you want to reach out to us at any point, please reach out to us. We're very happy to share our learnings, and we try and share them through those SOTL publications as well. But very happy to talk to you guys about what we've done, how we did it, why we did it. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. And your generosity is always appreciated, because that sharing of knowledge really does I think it's a good thing, and it does really help move the body of our knowledge, everyone's knowledge forward. So thank you. And Carlos and Benedicte, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, not really. I guess if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message, an email. Otherwise, we are always happy to collaborate with any other university and anything related to learning design, co-design. So this is a new exciting field for us. So yeah, send me a message. It will be good.
Fantastic. And I mean, I know a lot of people in the room today, and I think that not just me, but there are quite a few fans of the work that Elaine and the team and everyone's been doing on co-design and moving that forward. So thank you very much to both of you for sharing today. So I realize a lot of people in the room have actually done both the certified review workshop, as well for TELAS, as well as become accredited. But Lisa has a workshop that's coming up in the near future, And we're going to, did you have that slide to share just to let everyone know? Excellent. So Lisa's going to share that. And did you want to talk to it, Lisa?
Sure. But I was also going to say it's really wonderful to see everybody here because I do know most of these people from having done the workshop and also becoming our reviewers. So thank you, everybody. And Michael, I've started sharing your work in the workshops as well. And Carlos was in a workshop and we talked about the work that they were doing in there. So I really love how that's been infiltrating and turning TELAS into something other than how we started it with, I guess, or how it was started. I do have a workshop that I'll be presenting August the 1st and 2nd. So anybody who hasn't come and would like to, 10 o'clock to 1:30, which is Eastern Standard Time. We do it in Zoom. There's the cost there. The link is to our website, which, sorry, I can't easily put it into the chat for anybody. But it's good if you are interested, it's good to register early because we do send some pre-work out, and anybody here who's done the workshop will be able to go, yes, you need to get the pre-work done because it's the work makes the workshop better. So yeah, that was all I wanted to do, was kind of plug it and see if we could get a few more people to come along in a couple of weeks' time to our workshop.
Thanks, Lisa. And I've just shared a link. It's not quite the same link, but you will be able to see the register here link on the page that I shared. So don't think that I shared.
Email us if you want some more information.
Yeah, so I shared the page with all the information, plus that has the register here halfway down. So it should be pretty easy to find. It has all the info. Fantastic. Thank you for coming along and sharing that today.
Cool.
Yeah, otherwise I think we can probably wrap up unless, does anyone have anything further they wish to say? Look at that, exactly on time, 1 minute to go. Fantastic. Thanks so much for attending, everyone. It was great to see you all today. And thank you, presenters. Fantastic.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Bill. Good to see you, Bill.
You bet, Chris. Take care. Bye.
Bye.